So our first topic this year will be states of matter, and these are the learning objectives. So learning objectives are basically telling you what you need to know by the end of that particular unit. Okay, so there are 4 things you have to know by the end of the unit, and if you don't by the end, then you have to go over your notes, see if you can answer the learning objectives, and if you still can't, to see either your classmates to get some help, and finally me. Okay, so these are learning objectives which you need to know by the end. Okay, so let's look at the kinetic particle theory of matter. It sounds very complicated with some very big words, but all it's basically saying is that all the objects from everyday life that we can bump into, touch and squeeze are composed of particles. Okay, that's the particle part of the theory, and that particles are arranged into 3 different states: solids, liquids, and gases. Okay, so you have the solids, which are molecules that are held into a fixed position, which then melt to form liquids, which are packed close together, but not packed as much as solids, and are free to move around a bit. And then these particles then can evaporate to form a gas, which the molecules can be widely spread about. And conversely, you have the gas, they can condense back down into liquids, and then the liquids can be frozen back into solids. Another special one is that solids can go directly into gases by something called sublimation. Okay, so looking at gas, pressure, and temperature. The pressure of a gas is the force that these particles of gases, when they hit against the side of the wall, exert when they collide with the walls of the container. Okay, so a cool gas doesn't move very quickly. Okay, so when you're cold, you don't really move that much. And there's fewer, which means less than, many collisions. Don't collide that much. Okay, so when you're not moving much, you're not really colliding. And then if you heat the gas up, then they're going to have more energy. Just like if I heat you up, you're probably going to jump off your chair, and they're going to be more energetic collisions. Have more energy. Okay, so the higher the temperature, the higher the particles' energy is. They move a lot faster. So the chance of the particles colliding, that's what frequency means, the chance of colliding with the container walls increases, and when the particles hit the container wall, it increases the pressure. Okay, so the average amount of energy of a gas particle depends only on the temperature of the gas. Okay, kinetic means the energy of moving. Okay, so a special term is also known as diffusion, and diffusion is the process by which particles spread out as a result of their random motion. Okay, so if we were standing in the middle of the room and we started out moving it off in random directions, eventually would cover the entire room. So how quickly this happens depends on the amount of energy, how fast the particles are moving, and also that is dependent on how heavy they are. Heavier objects or particles move a lot slower. Okay, so I move a lot slower than you do. So diffusion rates. So rates is how fast something happens. So the mass is indirectly proportional to the rate of diffusion. So what that means is that the heavier something is, the slower it's going to diffuse. Okay, and the smaller, lighter particles disperse faster compared to larger, heavy particles, which kind of makes sense. Okay, so finally, we're looking at solutions, solutes, and solvents. So a solution is when a solute dissolves in a solvent. For example, sugar into water. Okay, a solute is something that you dissolve into the water or into the solvent. So for example, sugar, that's the solute. A solute gets more soluble as the temperature increases. Okay, so here's a little diagram illustrating that. So as you can see, as the temperature increases, the amount of potassium nitrate increases from 21 grams for 100 mils to 167 grams at 353 Kelvin. Okay, so that you can dissolve more when you are able to increase the temperature. When the water is a solvent, it's called an aqueous solution. And finally, when you can dissolve no more solute into a solution, it now it is now a saturated solution and it starts becoming solid again. It's no longer dissolved. Okay, so that's pretty much all you need to know for the states of matter.